They say every neighborhood has a Karen, but in Sunset Ridge ours ruled like a queen who mistook her crown for a badge. I thought I'd seen every kind of HOA madness until the day she tried to have me arrested for not paying her electric bill. When I first moved into Sunset Ridge 3 months ago, I imagined peace, quiet evenings, friendly neighbors, maybe a few community barbecues. The houses were neat, lawns manicured, and the HOA fees surprisingly reasonable. I thought I'd found suburban heaven. But heaven, it turns out, was under the command of Karen Whitmore, the self-appointed ruler of our homeowners association. She'd been president for 5 years, and by the time I arrived, everyone else on the board had either quit or surrendered. What was left wasn't an HOA, it was a monarchy. The first time I met her, she appeared on my doorstep holding a massive binder, 3 inches thick, labeled Sunset Ridge Standards, revised and improved by President Whitmore. She smiled the way customer service agents do before saying, "That's not my department." Her khakis were perfectly pressed, her polo tucked tighter than her patience. "Welcome to Sunset Ridge," she chirped. "Now, as you'll see in section 12.4, lawn maintenance must be performed every Saturday between 8 and 10 a.m. I personally inspect every yard on Sunday mornings to ensure compliance." I blinked. "The original HOA rules don't say anything about exact times," I said, flipping through my own copy. Her smile didn't move, but her eyes hardened. "Well, I've improved those outdated documents. These new standards keep our property values high. You'll thank me later." That should have been my cue to run, or at least start recording everything, but I figured I could handle one overzealous HOA president. I was wrong. A few weeks later, I hired a landscaping company to install native California plants, poppies, lavender, a few drought-resistant shrubs. I'd checked city permits, confirmed compliance, and made sure everything matched the HOA covenants. The next morning, I found Karen standing in my yard, red-faced and furious, clipboard in hand. "What do you think you're doing?" she snapped, pointing at the flowers. "These plants aren't on the approved list." I showed her the HOA document. "They're native species, perfectly allowed." "Those covenants are old," she hissed. "I've created new landscaping guidelines that require pre-approval." "Show me where those new guidelines were adopted by the board." Her chin lifted. "I am the board." That's when it hit me. Karen had built herself a throne out of paperwork and paranoia. She didn't just run the HOA, she was the HOA. From that day on, the war began. Every morning, I'd find new violation notices taped to my door, some real, most imaginary. One for leaving my trash cans visible for more than 30 minutes. Another for parking in my own driveway after sunset. And one especially creative one, curtains not in compliance with neighborhood brightness standards. Each violation came with a fine, none of which existed in any legal document. When I ignored them, she escalated. She started taking photos of my house from every angle, like a paparazzi with a vendetta. Neighbors told me she'd bragged about documenting the defiance. Then came the bill. It showed up in my mailbox one afternoon, $437.62 from Pacific Gas and Electric. Attached was a note in her perfectly slanted handwriting. "Your noncompliance has forced me to work extra hours managing your violations. You owe me for the additional electricity used in my home office." I actually laughed, loudly. The audacity was almost impressive. So I walked over, bill in hand. Karen answered wearing rubber gloves and holding a spray bottle. "I think you put this in my mailbox by mistake," I said. She smiled, satisfied. "Oh, no mistake, you caused this. I've spent hours documenting your violations. That's administrative work. My electricity bill has increased because of you. You owe me." I stared at her, waiting for the punchline. "Karen, you can't bill homeowners for your personal utilities. That's not how HOAs work." "Well," she replied sharply, "you have 10 business days to pay. or I'll be forced to take legal action." I laughed again. "I'm not paying your electric bills." Her eyes turned cold. "We'll see about that." And she slammed the door. 2 days later, I was working from home when I heard sirens. I looked out the window. A patrol car stopped in front of my house. 2 officers stepped out, and right behind them, like a cat who'd finally caught the mouse, came Karen, clipboard in hand, smile sharp as a knife. I opened the door before they could knock. "Good afternoon, officers. What seems to be the problem?" The older cop glanced at his notes. "We received a call about theft of services and refusal to pay legally mandated fees." Karen folded her arms. "He owes me $437.62 for administrative costs. I'm the HOA president. He's refusing to pay." The younger officer blinked. "Ma'am, are you saying he owes this money to the HOA?" "To me personally," she said proudly, "for extra electricity use." Both officers looked at each other. The older one sighed. "Ma'am, you can't arrest someone for not paying your electric bill. That's a civil issue, not a criminal offense." "But he's stealing services," she protested. "I provided administrative labor." "Did he request it?" the younger officer interrupted. "Well, no, but—" "Then it's not theft," the older officer said flatly. "If you file more false reports, you could be charged for misuse of emergency services." Karen froze. Her confidence cracked like thin ice. When the police left, she stood in my driveway, glaring at me as if reality itself had betrayed her. Then she turned and stormed back home. I wish I could say that was the end of it. But humiliation only fueled her madness. Within a week, the violations multiplied. Aggressive landscaping choices that intimidate neighbors. Outdoor furniture not in aesthetic harmony. Driveway reflection deemed disruptive to community peace. Her imaginary fines ballooned. $500 for environmental noncompliance. $750 for architectural insubordination. $1,000 for willful disregard of community harmony. It was absurd until she crossed the line again. This time she called 911, claiming I was destroying community property values through malicious noncompliance. The same 2 officers returned. They looked tired. "Ma'am," said the older one, "this is your 3rd call this month about civil disputes." "But he's destroying property values," she shouted. "That's vandalism." The younger officer rubbed his temple. "Property values aren't property, ma'am. You can't arrest someone for having plants you don't like." That was the moment I realized reason wasn't going to stop her. Law enforcement wasn't going to fix it. I needed to end it, legally and permanently. The next morning, I gathered everything. Every violation notice. Every fake fine. Every photo she'd taken. And that electric bill, the crown jewel of her insanity. Then I filed a formal complaint with the state's Department of Real Estate, which oversees HOA operations. I also filed a harassment complaint with the local police and mailed a certified letter to every homeowner in Sunset Ridge. I explained everything: her fake rules, unauthorized fines, and personal payment demands. What happened next was nothing short of poetic justice. It turned out I wasn't her only target. Half the neighborhood had been fined or threatened under her made-up guidelines. One family was charged $800 for having insufficiently cheerful garden decor. Another had been written up because their kids' toys were visible from the backyard for more than 2 hours. Within 2 weeks, the neighborhood united. They called for an emergency board meeting and a vote of no confidence in Karen's leadership. That night, the community center overflowed. Karen arrived, clutching her binder like a royal decree. "I don't understand why everyone is so upset," she began, trying to smile. "Everything I've done has been for the betterment of our community, our property values." But her voice was drowned by a wave of residents sharing their stories. each one worse than the last. When my turn came, I stood and held up her electric bill. "This," I said, "is what happens when someone mistakes control for care." The room fell silent. And then the vote. Karen Whitmore removed from the board, 43-2. Only she and her loyal neighbor voted in her favor. But karma wasn't done yet. The Department of Real Estate Investigation concluded weeks later. Karen had violated multiple state laws governing HOA conduct, creating unauthorized rules, collecting fake fines, and abusing her position. Her penalty: $15,000 in state fines. $5,000 per homeowner she defrauded. 7 families total. That's $50,000 plus restitution to every single homeowner she'd wronged. When the investigator read the verdict aloud, Karen sat motionless, her face drained of color. $50,000, she whispered. "I don't have that kind of money. I was just trying to help the community." But the truth was clear. Karen hadn't been helping anyone, she'd been ruling. And Sunset Ridge had finally overthrown its queen. That was today's tale from HOA Tales. Thank you for listening. If this story touched you, share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you.